If he lived to be 3002, Jovan Kos would never understand why his best friend agreed to hold his bachelor party in the Las Vegas Interstices. Sure, it was the last day of January, and the Interstices, the post-creation gaps between realms, didn't completely reflect the weather in their Earthside counterparts, but Las Vegas was in the freaking desert for fuck's sake. Ola's frost goblin clan hailed from Niflheim, a realm that was nothing but wall-to-wall ice, snow, and mist. With his thick, full-body fur, Ola had to be miserable in this heat. Jovan wasn't that comfortable himself, his dress shirt sticking to his skin, and he was human-ish. Most of the time. But Ola had given Jovan the sad puppy eyes, and said that Radka, his bride-to-be, was having her bachelorette party here too, and one peculiar feature of Radka's villa culture required the bridesmaids to kidnap the groom midway through the festivities. Whatever. So as Ola's best man, Jovan had caved, coordinated with Radka's snooty maid of honor to set it up, and booked this bar for the party's exclusive use. Something had to be wrong with the environmental spells, though, because the place could double as the antechamber of Muspelheim, the Norse fire realm. He glowered at the bartender, who'd come to refresh his drink. "What's with the air conditioning?" The fawn bartender gulped and inched back, his goatee quivering and his hooves tip-tip-tipping on the wooden floor. Fuck. Better tone down the attitude. Because Jovan really needed that drink. "Sorry." He tapped the rim of his highball glass with one finger. "Same again. Please." The bartender nodded, snatched the empty with the tips of his fingers, keeping as far away from Jovan as possible, and practically sprinted back to the other end of the bar. Jovan sighed and tugged at his shirt collar, hoping in vain for a little breeze. A shriek split the air, and Jovan leaped off his bar stool, sending it crashing to the floor. He reached for his sidearm and came up empty. Loki's balls. Why had he agreed to surrender his weapon at the intergate? The bartender was crouched behind the bar, his arms over his head, clearly not about to stage an intervention. Fuck it. Armed or not, Jovan was fully capable of countering most threats. His inner wolf warrior was never far below the surface, but he loosened his iron control, allowing heat to build behind his eyes as he crept forward until he could see past the pony wall that separated the bridal party from the rest of the empty bar. Radka and her bridesmaids were fluttering around like so many blonde sparrows, while a wizened old woman dressed head to toe in rusty black, including her babushka, rocked in her seat with a very poorly knitted shawl thrown over her head. Poor Ola sat at the other side of the oval table with an even more poorly knitted hat jammed on his head and draped in at least 3 mufflers. He was clutching a tall glass of ice almost desperately, and his big paws were encased in heavy mittens. What the fuck? The man could weather sub-zero temperatures naked. Why the hell did he need ratty winter gear in a bar that was 3 degrees away from a sauna? Jovan wasn't supposed to intervene in this part of the proceedings. His job was technically done once the bridesmaids had kidnapped Ola from the very sedate poker game that was all Ola would allow for his bachelor party. But Jovan wasn't leaving until he was sure Ola hadn't melted into a frickin' puddle. Besides, Jovan felt a personal responsibility for making sure this weekend ran smoothly. Not only was he Ola's best man, he was the one who'd introduced him to Radka. At the time, he'd never seen this relationship coming. Nobody had. Who would have believed that a frost goblin and a vila would ever fall in love? Jovan hesitated, debating whether to wade in and demand explanations. The only thing that stopped him was that Ola didn't look distressed. If you don't count incipient heat prostration. Instead, he was gazing at Radka with that same dreamy half-smile on his face he'd worn since the day Radka had proposed to him.